going to show you how to use Cursor to make an app even if you don't know any code. You don't need any prior experience to follow this tutorial. Now here's what you're going to learn. Number one, we're going to go over when you would want to use AI coding for your app, because this is not the only way for you to make your app. We'll talk about when it's a good idea and perhaps when you should be a little more cautious about it. Number two, I'm going to walk you through the process of making an app with AI. We need a roadmap so we know where we're going, right? Number three, I'm going to tell you all the tools and software you need to get in order to get started with this. Number four, I'm going to tell you how to set it all up and get up and running. Next, I'm going to show you how to set up a new project. There are some configuration steps that you're not going to want to miss, or else it's not going to be as easy. And number six, I'm going to show you how to plan out your project in a way that is step-by-step, that makes it easy for AI to help you build. Then I'm going to show you actually how to tell AI to walk through those steps and build your app. I'm going to tell you how to troubleshoot some common errors. And lastly, I'm going to show you how to use AI to also do your design and also to integrate it with your project. Now, I know this seems like a lot of steps, but once you've walked through the process once, you're going to be able to repeat it to build as many apps as you want. In fact, these are some of the techniques we used to recently launch our daily parent affirmations app. It's live in the App Store now, and you can download it, and I use these exact steps. So by the end of this video, you're gonna have everything you need to start bringing your app ideas to life. All right, let's get started. So let's start with going over why AI may not be a great idea for your project, or when you may need to be a little more cautious. Number one is if you have an existing project. Getting AI to work on it may be a little bit difficult because it's going to have to understand the entire project. If the project is large, it's going to have a hard time understanding all of it, because AI models have a context window. There's only so much they can keep track of and consider when they're generating code. As a result, you might get duplicated code. It might break functionality that already was working. I'd be cautious there. Also, projects that work with a lot of different proprietary systems. In a lot of corporations, there's old legacy systems and there's software to interface with all of these different systems. Now, if it's a public-facing API that's well documented, AI can go ahead and read the documentation and help you with that. But if it's like a proprietary system, then it's going to have a lot harder time understanding how to work with it. So I'd be cautious there as well. And then projects that deal with sensitive information. I'm going to show you how you can make sure that even though you don't know code, you're telling AI to handle that sensitive information in a secure way. Now let's switch gears and talk about when you would want to use AI coding, because it's great for a lot of use cases. Amazing, actually. So number one, new projects that are smaller in scope. And this is great to start off your grand vision. So if you have a big app idea, using AI is great for testing the waters for that idea. Just build a small prototype so that you can start testing it, and you can do that very quickly just to vet the idea. Or maybe the app that you want to build isn't so complicated and it's a smaller contained app. AI does really well with that as well. I can see myself in my day-to-day life running into a situation where I think maybe having an app would be great, but I can't find it in the App Store. So using AI to whip that up would be amazing. For example, I was going for a walk with my daughter and she saw an interesting looking bug that we haven't seen before. She wanted to identify it. And I said, oh, there's apps that can do this for you. So I got one, but these apps cost a lot of money. They're subscriptions. This is another situation where a bug identifier app is really easy for AI to whip up, and you can just connect it to your own, let's say, OpenAI API key. So that's exactly what we did. Okay, so to better understand how AI helps you, let's walk through the normal process of making an iPhone app. First, we use a Mac computer. We download the official development app from Apple called Xcode. Inside Xcode, we write the code for the app. And there's two types of code that we write: Swift code for the app logic and Swift UI code for the user interface, which are the screens that the user sees when they use your app. And then we compile the app. Now, compile is just a technical term, meaning we take all of the code we wrote and translate it into machine code that computers can understand, and then we package that machine code into a bundle. That bundle gets sent to the Apple App Store, where users can browse for it, and when they download your app, they're downloading that bundle and installing it onto their iPhones to use. Now let's consider how AI makes this different. Instead of writing the Swift and Swift UI code manually, we use everyday language to tell AI what we want. We can tell AI how we want the screen to look, how the user should navigate through the app, and what happens when the user taps a button, and so on and so forth. AI will generate all of the Swift and Swift UI code to produce the result that we've asked. And that's why you don't need to know or understand any code, although it certainly helps if you do. Now, the really tricky part working with AI is describing what you want accurately, but we're going to get to that later on. Now, after AI generates your code, the rest of the process is the same. You're still going to have to compile the code into a bundle and submit that bundle into the App Store. Aside from the coding part, AI can help us in other ways, such as doing app research and planning our app, using AI to generate the design, using AI to produce documentation for the app, using AI to generate app listing descriptions and metadata. Overall, AI helps us speed up our workflow significantly if we know how to use it well. So we covered when it's a good idea to use AI coding and when you should be a little bit more cautious. And we also walked through the normal process of making an iPhone app and how AI helps speed that up. Next, we're going to talk about all of the tools and materials that you need and also where to get them. And then we're going to set them up as well so we can get up and running. In this part, you're going to learn what tools and software you need to get started with building iPhone apps. And I'll show you how to set it all up too. So you saw this diagram in the previous part. Since we're building iPhone apps, we're still going to need Xcode to turn our AI-generated code into an app that we can submit to the Apple App Store. Unfortunately, Xcode only runs on Mac computers, and I know for some people that can be a deal breaker. I'll explain some options if you don't have a Mac, but first, maybe you're not even building an iPhone app. In that case, you may not need a Mac at all. Take a look at this quick reference table. If you're building an Android app or a web app or a website, then you can use a PC. And if you're not sure what kind of app you're trying to build, just comment below and we'll help get you sorted out. Now, assuming that you're here wanting to build an iPhone app, let's proceed with how to get access to a Mac. Now, first, the free option. You can try to borrow a friend's. You can see if your school or university has access to a Mac in the computer. Public libraries have Macs. Or you can see if there are some computer stores locally that will rent Macs out. Now for the paid options. If you want to invest in a Mac computer, buying used or refurbished is an option that I highly recommend. Try to get one that is no more than 2 years old. In my experience using Macs in the last 15 years, a Mac computer will last anywhere from 4 to 5 years before it gets outdated and slow and you're going to have to upgrade by buying a new one because it's not so easy to swap out parts in a Mac, as you know. The Apple website has a refurbished section, so you can buy one that is Apple refurbished. It's usually at a discount and it comes with Apple Care warranty as well, so that's a great option. Otherwise, you're going to be taking your chances on Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji or something like that. Another option is rent a Mac or similar services where you can remote desktop into a Mac and you can use it for development there. You can get access for a day, for 7 days, for a month. The fees vary. So again, I'll leave the link in the description below. So in terms of tools, access to a Mac is the only thing you need. Next, let's talk about software. So next, you're going to need an AI-powered IDE. Now, what is an IDE? It stands for Integrated Development Environment, but that's just a fancy word for code editor. Simple, right? This is Xcode. And this is a code editor or an IDE. And we write our code right here in the center. Now, what's an AI-powered IDE? It usually means a code editor with an additional panel either on the right or the left, which you can type AI prompts into. This is Cursor. This is an AI-powered IDE. So this is opening the same project as Xcode is, but you'll notice that it has an additional panel on this right. It says New Chat. And here I can type in commands or prompts to the AI to ask it to generate code. When it generates the code, it puts it in the middle, just like in the code editor section inside Xcode. The only difference is that here you are manually writing your code. Here you can manually write it, or you can use this AI panel to prompt the AI. Now, prompt just means that you're telling the AI what to do. Instructions, if you will. So I think the next natural question is, why doesn't Xcode have AI power? Unfortunately, at the time of this recording is not an AI powered IDE. But in the next version of Xcode, which is releasing sometime in September 2025, Xcode will have the AI powered capabilities just like Cursor does. So then we won't need this extra piece of software, and we will have that chat panel that we can give instructions to AI right inside Xcode. And just to remind you, the reason why we still need Xcode and not just being fully reliant on an AI-powered IDE like Cursor is because inside Xcode, we can archive, which is going to take all of this code that you've written inside this Xcode project, turn it into an app bundle, and then to be able to send that to the Apple App Store. It's only going to accept those app bundles from Xcode because this piece of software is an official Apple tool. This is what they want you to use to build apps across all of those Apple platforms. So whether it's the goggles, Vision, or it's Apple TV, or Apple Watch, or iPhone, you name it, even Mac apps. So the process is we use Xcode, we create a new project from here, and then we open up that project inside an AI-powered IDE like Cursor. We generate the code. It's going to modify the project, have all this code in here, and then we're going to save it. When you come back to Xcode, you're going to see all of that generated code here because it's working on the same project as this one, as Cursor is, right? And then we are going to archive it, turn it into an app bundle, send it to the App Store. So that's the overall process. Okay, so to recap, you'll need to get access to a Mac, you'll need to download Xcode, and you'll need to download an AI-powered IDE such as Cursor, which is what we're going to be using in this video series. Oh, and I'll also mention that Xcode and Cursor can be used for free. All right, first thing, let's download Xcode. So I'm going to go step by step in case this is your first time using a Mac. Hold the command button and press spacebar to open up Spotlight Search, and you can type in the App Store to quickly hit enter and launch it. Alternatively, at the bottom of the screen, you'll probably see the App Store icon anyways, and you can just click on that. Let me just expand this window. Now you're going to want to search for Xcode in the upper left corner, and this first listing under Xcode Developer Tools, check that it is from Apple, Developers Apple. This is the official code editor to build on all of the Apple platforms. Ignore the ratings because developers have a love-hate relationship. While this is the official tooling, it can be buggy sometimes, and developers probably feel locked into this software because you have to use it if you want to build apps for all of the Apple platforms. So you're going to go ahead and download that. It will take a while because it says it's 3 gigs, but it'll download additional tools and components needed. So it could take up to, I'd say 10 gigs, something like that. So go ahead, wait for that. And then when it's finished downloading, you're going to want to launch it. On your first launch, it is going to ask you to install additional tools and components. It might ask you for your password to your computer because it needs permission to go ahead and install those components. So you want to enter your password, you're going to want to say yes, install, go ahead. There will also be a pop-up that asks you what platforms you want to develop for. And so you're going to want to make sure that iOS, which stands for the mobile devices, the iPhones, you're going to want to make sure that that is enabled or checked. And then you're going to install components. After all of that is said and done, you're going to have a screen that looks like this, and you're going to be able to create a new project. Now, before we do that, let's install the second piece of software that we need, and that is Cursor. So open up a browser and go to cursor.com. Now, I know there are other AI code editors, such as Claude Code, but I'm familiar with Cursor, and that's what we're going to do in this video series. But I will cover Claude Code and some other ones in the future in another video. So you're going to want to download it. And I actually uninstalled it on my computer because I want to walk you through these exact steps. So once you click it, it's going to download the file. I'm not going to download it because I've already downloaded it prior, but make a note of where you're going to be saving this. And then you're going to want to open up your Finder window. You're going to want to navigate to wherever you saved it. Double click on the .dmg file. You're going to want to just click and drag it over to your applications folder. And then a little progress bar will pop up like this, where it's copying the actual program over to the applications folder. And then in here, if you click on applications, you're going to find it right here. You can double click it and launch it. It might pop up a security dialog saying it was downloaded from the internet. Yep. And we're going to continue to open it. And then if it's your first time using Cursor, you'll probably get a welcome screen asking you to either sign in or create an account. You're going to want to create an account if you don't have one. You can use Cursor for free. There is a monthly limit, but you can definitely get a handle on it first and see if you would like to pay for it to continue using it. Now it looks like my extensions are all installed and it even opened the previous project. Let me try to actually close this so that I can show you what a new experience might look like. Okay, so this is what the initial Cursor window would look like. Plus, it might ask you to sign in or create an account. We're going to create a new project in Xcode. We're going to open it with Cursor. So let's switch gears and go into Xcode first. So I'm going to launch Xcode and we're going to create a new project. So this button right here is create a new project. Otherwise, you can go up to the file menu and you can click on new and you can choose project. Same thing. We're going to choose iOS up here and then we're going to choose app here and we're going to click next and we're going to give it a name. Let's just say test Cursor. For this, you can leave it as none if you'd like because we're not actually publishing it anywhere. And then for this, you can just put, if you have a company name, do the reverse domain style. You have com, dot, and then whatever your organization name is, or just your personal name or first name. Doesn't matter for now. This combined with the product name is a unique ID for this app. For interface and language, this is really important. So make sure you choose Swift UI and language as Swift. These should be the default settings anyways. And for testing and storage, you can leave them as none. Let's click on next. I'm going to save it to my desktop. And then we have a new project. So this is what a new project in Xcode looks like. You have a couple of new files. This is the entry code. This is the first screen of your app. And then this half is a code editor, while the right-hand half is a preview of what that screen looks like. We're not going to dive too much into learning Xcode and learning Swift UI and Swift code in this video. I do have other video series talking about that, walking you through as a beginner. If you want to learn all of that, check out the video series up there. But for now, this is all we need. We've started a new app project. We are going to just minimize this Xcode window for now. And then we're going to jump over to Cursor and we're going to open up that project we just created. So go ahead and hit open project. And then I saved it on the desktop and this is the one. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it. You don't have to double click into it. You can just hit open. And it's right here. You can see this is that entry code or entry point I talked to you about. And this is the first screen of our app. So this is perfect. Before we can start telling AI what code we want to generate, we have to install a few plugins into Cursor to set it up as similar to Xcode as possible, which means that it recognizes Swift code and Swift UI code, and also it allows us to build the project and test the project directly inside Cursor. There are a couple of plugins to install, so let me show you how to do that now. The reason we have to do this, actually to do an aside, is because Cursor can be used for multiple types of projects. It can be used for web apps, Android apps, and all sorts of different things. So we need to set up Cursor in a way for iPhone apps right now. So across this icon bar at the top, hit this down arrow and you're going to see extensions. So go ahead and click that. And there are a couple of extensions you're going to want. So Swift language support. Swift is the code that we use to write the app logic. So go ahead and search for Swift language support, hit enter. Okay, so if we click this, yeah, so this is the one. It's Swift by SwiftLang, and then you're going to want to install this. Okay, second one we're going to want to install is called SweetPad. And this allows us to run and build the project directly inside Cursor. So go ahead and install that as well. So this is actually a really good segue into talking about how AI can help you, not just with generating code, but with troubleshooting other errors as well. So during the installation process of either of these extensions, if you're running into errors, usually they pop up in the lower left corner in a little dialog box. You can copy that error message directly into this chat and you can say, I'm trying to install SweetPad. but running into this error, and then whatever the error is. And just by saying that, it's going to offer you suggestions. Obviously, you have to hit enter. Then the AI will help you troubleshoot and walk you through different steps and things to try. Okay, so if you run into any issues, that would be your first thing to try. After you have those things installed, if you come back here, clicking this icon, you might not have this SweetPad icon here. You're going to want this quick access to it because you're going to be tapping this to run your project. You can open up this menu and you can look for SweetPad on this list and then hit the little pin button, and that will pin that icon to this bar. Next, there are a few more things to install. Now would be a good time to mention in the upper right-hand corner, there are these buttons that let you toggle different parts of the UI. This middle one, this panel at the bottom, this is called the terminal, and it lets you run commands on your computer. And sometimes that is very helpful. Now, one of the things that is done through the terminal is installing additional plugins that will help with our development process. There's something called Homebrew, which is a plugin manager for Mac. And if we take a look, this is a package manager or a plugin manager for Mac OS. So we're going to want to install Homebrew on our system if we don't already have it installed. And we're going to want to install some additional plugins, which I'll walk you through. The first step is to figure out if you have Homebrew installed or not. So there's a command that you can run in here. But if you don't know the command, I want to show you this is what you would do. Do I have a Homebrew installed? And have AI check for us. And we can also see how it's checking for us. Or it might just tell us what command to run. So this is the command in which we can run. So you can either tell it to run, which what it's doing is just typing in this command into terminal down here and running it for you. So we can just run it ourselves. So you can see that it is there, or we can just hit run and have it tell us. So it tells us we do have Homebrew installed. This command tells us that we have this directory. Now, in terms of which version, it gives us a different command that we can try. So running it here or asking AI to run it yields the same result or information. Okay, so I have it installed. If you don't have it installed, we go back to this page and we simply copy this URL, hit copy, and then you can paste that in here and run it. I might ask you for your password again because you're making changes to your computer. Okay, but after you have that installed, then you're able to install a couple of more plugins. So first of all and I'll link these to the description below. This one is Xcode Build Server, and it allows you to turn your Swift and Swift UI code into an app to run on the simulator, which you haven't seen yet, but you will see. It allows you to do that through the terminal, which means that we can test our apps from Cursor. Instead of having to rely on Xcode and going in here and hitting this run button and then having it show us the result, we can do that directly through here. And SweetPad will need this. Next up, we have iOS Deploy. Again, you can copy this and then just run it in here. And this will complement the Xcode Build Server for deploying our apps and running it in the simulator so that we can test it. And again, you're going to see the simulator real soon. Next up, we have this one, XCBeautify, which formats all of that output in a way that we can read it easily. And lastly, we have Swift Format. And this will help highlight keywords and format the code inside Cursor here so that we can easily read Swift and Swift UI keywords. And it just makes this code more legible. Now, right now, you might not care about reading the code, but as you start building apps and you start asking questions, you will probably just inherently learn different aspects about Swift UI code and Swift code. And yeah, before you know it, you're going to be able to recognize this sort of stuff. So those are the Homebrew plugins that you need to install. If you have any issues installing any of them, you're getting some weird output here. Again, you have an assistant right here on your right-hand side that can tell you exactly what's wrong. Go ahead and type in, I'm trying to install whatever extension or plugin it is. I'm getting this error message. Can you tell me why? And it's going to explain it. It's going to walk you through. Then you can ask it, can you walk me through the steps to fix this? And things like that. Or even if you're not sure, if you want to verify what I said, you can ask, is this plugin useful? Do I need this plugin? Things like that. But after you have those things installed, you're all set up and ready to go. This is a little bit of pain to get set up, but afterwards you're ready and you're off to the races. So now you've learned that in order to publish apps into the Apple App Store, you need a Mac computer because you need to download Xcode for it. And you're going to need an AI-powered IDE or code editor, such as Cursor. Now, if you're watching this video series after September 2025, then Xcode 26 probably would have come out already, and that version of Xcode is AI enabled. So then you wouldn't need a separate piece of software. And if that's the case, I probably have a video series covering how to use Xcode 26 as well. Now, in terms of setup, right now, you've already downloaded and installed Xcode, and you've downloaded, installed Cursor, and you've also installed the required plugins inside Cursor. Next, we're going to set up a brand new project, and we're going to start building with AI. In this part, we're going to start our new app project and start generating code using AI. Let's dive right in. So in the previous part, we had started this Xcode project, and then we opened it up inside Cursor, and we installed all those extensions, plugins, and packages. But before we dive into Cursor and start generating code, let me show you how you're going to test out your app. In the previous part, I mentioned something called an iOS simulator, and it is basically a virtual iPhone that sits on your screen, and you can interact with it and test your iPhone app. Inside Xcode, I want you to hit this play icon. It should by default be selected. You'll see some sort of iPhone device here. If not, you can tap on this and you can select a different device that you want to play your app on or test your app on. You might not see as many devices on your list as I have because I've gone through several versions of Xcode, and you can always download older devices and older iOS versions if you'd like. But use what you have right now. It might be iPhone 16 or whatever it may be. And then just hit this button. Now on the first run, it's going to boot up this simulator. It's going to take a while. It could take up to a few minutes, but subsequent times, it won't take as long. It's almost like your iPhone is booting up, that startup time. So as you can see, this screen has appeared and it's going to install this app, which I called Test Cursor, literally going to install it on the home screen here and launch it. And you're going to be able to see the results of the code. This is default project code that is given to you when you start a new project. And as you can see this is a preview canvas. It looks like this. It just says hello world with an icon. There you go. You see the app right there, Test Cursor. It's going to launch it. All right. So here's what it looks like. And as you can see, it's exactly like the preview. Now you can interact with this right in this simulator, but there is nothing to do on it. I wanted to show you this. We don't have to rely on Xcode in order to launch the simulator. We want to be able to do the same thing from Cursor, so we don't have to keep switching back and forth. So let's stop this project, and there's a stop button that appears next to the play. You can hit stop, and it's going to cancel out, stop running the project. And then let's switch over to Cursor, and I'll show you now how you can launch the simulator from here. Just in case you are jumping in at this point, what we've done inside Cursor is open up the Xcode project. So when you open up a new window like this, you're going to navigate and browse to wherever you saved that Xcode project to. And for us, that was here. And then we hit open. And then we get all of it. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is probably make this text a little bigger so it's easier to see in the video. Up here, you're going to hit this line and then you're going to go show and run commands. And if this doesn't appear, generate build server config, you can search for it by just typing in build server, and you should find that because we installed the SweetPad extension. So you're going to hit that, give it a couple of seconds, it's going to do something, and then it's going to pop this up. It says select scheme for build server. You're just going to tap on that, and then it's going to go ahead and do its thing. You see in the lower left corner, it says it generated a buildserver.json file, and it created this new file right here. Now this file specifies what to run and basically all the instructions to launch that simulator you just saw. If you get an error when you try to generate that build server config that we just did, just copy the error message and use AI panel on the right hand side here. Tell it what you're trying to do. Say this is the error and get it to help you walk you through the steps to troubleshoot that. So now once you have this build server.json, if you switch tabs over to SweetPad, and just as a reminder, if you don't see this icon, click on this arrow and find the SweetPad option and then just hit the pin, and it's going to pin it to the bar right here. I'm going to switch to this tab, and then you have a run button right here. So you're going to run it, and it's going to go through the same steps. Okay, so here you get to select where you want to run it. So we did it on the 16 Pro, I believe. So I'm going to choose the same thing, although I have two here. 18, I think, is what we used, not 26. That's the beta. Yeah, 18.3. Okay, so since we already have the simulator launched, it's just going to relaunch the app. So there you go. Now there are two more things we want to set up inside Cursor to have an easier time. Basically gives AI context of what we're trying to do and to give it some guidelines to follow as it's generating code. Now, the more specific you can be, the more accurate AI will be in giving you what you want. So what we can do in that regard is to set up a file called Cursor Rules. And in here, you specify some guidelines about how you want it to behave. So inside Test Cursor, what you can do is just hit this new file button and type in dot. This is a special file called Cursor Rules. Inside here, we are going to copy and paste a whole bunch of different rules. I'll have a link in the description below the video for this URL, for this text that you can just copy and paste it in here. Side note is I got the base set of rules from another YouTube channel called AI JSON when I was learning how to use AI myself, and since have built upon the rules as I've been using AI. So I'm not going to go through all of the rules, but in general, it talks about how we want AI to structure our Swift project, what different keywords or what frameworks to use. So it just gives guardrails for the AI to follow. There's one little section that we need to edit, lines 8 and 9 right here. And it really depends on your project name. So I copied this from my parent affirmation app. This is Test Cursor. We're just going to want to change this. It just tells the AI, the model, when it generates code and new files, where do we want it to put it? And we want it to put it inside this folder right here. So if you take a look, you're probably going to have one folder, which is the app project name, and another, which is the app project name .xcodeproj. And this is the project file, but this is the folder up here where all of the code files go. As you can see, this code file, right? And that's also where our cursor rules go. So just change the path to that. Now the main Swift file, we also need to change this to match what we have here. This is the app entry point, or like all of the code for when the app launches. And you know this because there is this @main keyword here. So look for that. There are only two code files at this point, this one and this one, but you're going to see this one have an @main. That is the file name that we want to specify. So going back to cursor rules, let's change this to test_cursor app, like that. And the rest of it, you don't need to change. Now, this is also project specific. It's just telling Cursor what tools to use as we're building different things. Because this demo is going to be pretty simple, we're not going to use a lot of this stuff, but it doesn't hurt to leave it there anyways. So when you start to build your app and you're thinking about monetizing it or adding analytics, these are also the tools that I would recommend you use anyways. So you can leave that in there. You can always build upon this file and also change things to your liking as you get more experience and you build more iOS apps. But Cursor Rules, general place for you to put all of the rules you want AI to follow as it's generating your code. Okay, and then now there is another project-specific file that we want to add called instructions, And this is where we're going to lay out the project that we have in mind, like the app idea that we have. We're going to break it down into a series of steps, and we're going to have AI follow these steps one by one. And we're going to check after it completes each step. And that's how we're going to be incrementally building our app. Because in this demo, it's probably not going to be a large app. I will do future videos where we will build apps together using this technique. I just want to show you this instructions file and also how to create it so inside this folder right here, where there are all these different files, this time we're going to create a folder, new folder, and we'll just call it instructions. And then here inside this folder, highlight it. We're going to choose new file, and you're going to see it's going to put the file inside the instructions folder. And this one is just going to be instructions.md. And MD is a markdown file. It's essentially another text file. We're going to put the instructions in here. But just a side note, the other thing that's really great with this folder is just keeping everything organized. I'll also put screenshots in here that I want AI to follow. So when we get to the next part where we talk about the design for the app, I will generate the designs with AI, take some screenshots or any reference materials that I want, and I'll put it into this folder. And then when I'm prompting AI and telling it what to build and what to do, I will reference the files in this folder. That's why we're adding it in here, because when you're prompting AI, you can tell it specifically, hey, go look in that file and let's do step one. Or let's go into this folder and look at this screenshot. I want you to build this screen just like that. So that's what this folder is for. Now, as for what goes inside instructions.md, I'll get to that. But first, let's have some fun. We've done enough configuring and setting up, right? So I want to prompt AI to change our app. Let's say our app currently looks like this with nothing to do. Let's add a button here under the Hello World label. When the button is tapped on, we're going to change this text to say, look, we are using AI. Let's go ahead and do that. So inside this prompt here, what you can do is this. Okay, so let's click the little X here. It should say add context. And this is giving context to AI as to which files you want to work on. Now, even if you don't add context, it will look for the right files to edit and it'll look through your project, but you want to help it along because it's going to give you better results. So if you already know which file you want to modify or which screen you want to tackle, go ahead and click this add context and you can then browse for it. You can search, or you can there are some recent files here. Now, this is where it helps to know a little Swift and Swift UI code, but even if you don't worry, you'll learn over time as you do this, and also I'm here to guide you. So content view, remember how there are two files, and this one has the @main. This is the entry point of the app. The other file is actually the screen. It's your only screen, and you can see here, even though you can't read code, you may or may not, but I'm assuming this video series is for someone who doesn't know Swift and Swift UI. Assuming you don't know how to read this, you can still see the text hello world. You can still see the image, like you can recognize some words. And this says globe, which is what you see on this view. This gives you a clue that this is the screen you want to modify. So if you go back to cursor, if you tap on content view, or maybe you search for content view, and you're going to see it. That little check mark means that you've added it as context. You can also hit this X to remove it from the context. Content view. Okay. And then you just ask it to do what you want. There are a couple of other toggles here. This one, there are two different modes here. Agent is when you are trying to make some changes. This one is if you want to do research and you want to plan and you want to just find things out, more informational. So we want to do agent, and it's not so important. Even if you have it on ask and you try to do something, it will. But again, any way you can help it along helps. Now this one allows you to choose which model to use. It's set to auto by default, which is a great place to start if you know specifically which model you want to use, because different models are better for different tasks. So Claude is pretty good for coding is what people are recommending. But these things change really, really quickly. So because it's a race between all the companies right now coming out with models, we're just going to leave it as auto for now. So we don't need to get into that. So let's prompt it. Let's say you hired the developer to make this app. And in this case, AI is the developer. What would you say? You would say, I want a button below Hello World. The button says tap me. And when it is tapped on, I want to change the label that says Hello World and change it to, look, I'm using AI, right? And that's what you would say, and that's what you would type in here. The more specific you can be, the better. Also, this takes some getting used to, but you're not talking to a human being. There's a lot of extra words in conversation that you don't have to add. So things like please, thank you, or do this or do that. You can literally command AI using as little words as possible, as long as you are able to get across what you want it to do. So let's try to be brief, but also specific. So that's what I would write. And that should give us the result that we want. You hit enter and it's going to go and do its thing. So it's going to tell you what it's going to do. It's going to show you the lines of code that it's changing. Red means it's removing it. The other lines are adding. So you can also see here, +6, 6 lines added, 1 line removed. And then you have an option to undo or keep. So we're going to hit keep, and then we can relaunch our simulator and test this out. Now, sometimes AI messes up and it writes code and your project won't build anymore. So when you try to run it, there's going to be some red lines of text here in the terminal and it's going to have errors. In this case, the build succeeded, meaning that it's going to launch it now. But if there is red text because AI messed the project up, I'm going to show you what, but let's take a look at this launched app first. So it's going to go ahead and launch that simulator and we can see our changes. And what's funny is that you can see there's a bunch of waiting, right? You give this command and then it does its thing. And sometimes launching the simulator takes a while too. Oh, it did it. It just didn't pop up the simulator. You could potentially open up multiple windows and work on 2 projects simultaneously. So while you're waiting for one to do its thing, you're commanding and checking, reviewing the other one, and just like switching back and forth, almost like playing multiple poker tables. So it added a button. This is a default, like standard looking iOS button, and it did exactly what we told it to do, which is great. Now that's just one example of an AI prompt. There are a couple of different types of prompts that I'm going to walk you through for different purposes during this development phase of the app. But let's go back to what you do when your app doesn't build anymore. So I'd say there's 3 things you can try to do. The first would be to try to get AI to fix it. And what you can do is say, my app doesn't build. Or you can say error. You could say there is an error. But remember, as brief as possible, you're not talking to a real human being. But what would be better than just saying error is actually giving context. So you see how this is the terminal and it gives you all this output text, but there's actually multiple terminals. There's this one, which we were running our homebrew commands on, and there's this launch one, which we were using to launch the app. So chances are when you were trying to hit this button to launch the app, the red text would have come up in this launch terminal window. You can actually point cursor to look at the text in this window. It's like a file. So I'm going to hit X on this content view. I'm going to add context. And this time I'm going to go to terminals and I'm going to choose launch. So now it has context of this text here. And then I would just say error and I would just send it. Now, if I send it now, it probably won't find anything. I don't think. Yeah. So it couldn't find anything, but that's what you would do. And then it would go ahead and try to fix it. And then you would be presented with the options again, undo or keep, and you would keep it. And then you would try to launch it again. And there might be another error. You just repeat that process. But at some point, you're going to start to realize that AI perhaps doesn't know how to fix this error, or perhaps it's just made things even worse. So you can undo. Let's revert and walk back a few steps before we made all these changes. So let's say we told AI to do this. This is our prompt, and it messed something up so badly that it made you regret giving AI this instruction. You want to walk all the way back before you gave it that instruction. So then you can say restore checkpoint back to right before you gave it this instruction. So hit this checkpoint and it'll tell you discard all the changes up to this checkpoint. You can say, yeah. And now you're right at the cusp of sending this to AI, and all your code would have been reverted. And then you can go even farther back, or you can redo it. You can scroll forward. Let's say you changed your mind. You just click here. Let's click on this command, and you're essentially jumping forward or backwards to different points in time. Furthermore, this conversation that you're having right here is just one of potentially many conversations in a long history of conversations. You can show chat history like this, because you can always start a new chat. So let's say for this chat, we were talking about a specific feature. You can then start a new chat. It erases all the history. It doesn't erase the code. It just starts a new chat. It's almost like a new conversation you're having with someone in a different date. Now, why would you want to do this? Because at some point, you just need to hit reset. You might find that AI is really messing up, or it's not behaving the way you want it to. It might be referencing things from the history in the chat that you don't want it to reference or have context against. So you just hit this plus button and start a new chat. And you can see here, I can always go back to previous chats. If I show chat history now, you can see we have a couple of different chats that we've had, and you can always go and revert to some point, right? So that is how you undo, and that's a great option. You can even choose to undo a set of instructions instead of asking AI to fix it, like what I showed you here, telling it to fix the error. Third option is after you get the hang of it and you start to recognize some Swift and Swift UI, you probably see the same errors over and over. You're going to know how to fix it. You can just fix it yourself. You can go into whatever file and you can change the code, or you can jump into Xcode and you can go and also build the project here, see the errors and fix it. So that's not something I would recommend if you don't know Swift UI code, because that won't be very helpful. But yeah, between undoing and telling AI to resolve the errors, you're going to be able to go a long way. Now, I will mention source control briefly now. We're not going to dive into how to use that, but there is a better way to undo and restore state, and it is using something called source control. This is something that for developers is second nature. It's a way to do versioning for your code, so you can always jump back to different versions, or if you're trying to test something but you're not sure if it's going to work, you can create what's called a branch, basically a little workspace, if you will. Play with the code, see if it's going to work or not. Then you can ditch that workspace, or you can merge it into the good copy, the master copy. Using source control, and specifically GitHub, is something I'm going to do in a separate video. And even if you don't know how to code, you'll be able to use this. And I think it's going to be much more powerful than just undoing. But in conjunction, I think it's going to be the best option, the safest way. Because I know a lot of people who don't know how to code and they're using AI to try to build an app. They tell me, I see their posts, they often have to restart from scratch. Once their project gets so bad, they don't know what to do. They can't revert back to a clean state. They just ditch the project and start all over. And I don't want that to happen to you. I don't think it needs to get to that point. All right, so now we've tried out a little bit of prompting, a little bit of code generation. Let's talk about the different types of AI prompts you can use when you're building your project. So what we just went through was what I call a do something prompt, because we have specific instructions of what we want AI to do to our project. But when you're not so sure how to go about something, you can also just ask AI. So I oftentimes will ask something like, I want to implement this feature. What are my options? Don't do anything. Just tell me what I can do. And we say don't do anything specifically because I find that the AI model has a tendency to just go off to the races and start implementing something, even though that wasn't your intention. You can then follow on once it gives you different options to ask it, well, which option is best, or which option is suitable for what I'm trying to do. So you can try to challenge it with different questions. And again, you're just trying to find out the best way you should go about it. And then once you figure that out, you switch gears and use the do something type of prompt, and then you tell it to go and do it. Another type of prompt I use is the tell me about my project type of prompt. So for example, I might ask it something like, I know we implemented some view tracking, but I want to implement a streaks feature. So can you tell me what we've done in that regard? And then it will review the code and it will tell you what it's done. So this is where you want to find out information about your project. You can ask it also if things are being done properly, if things are being done the best way. So you might say something like, I want in the future for the user to be able to switch all the colors in my app to a different theme. Are we set up to do that? Or how can we set up our project and architect it in the best way to easily do that? And again, just tell me, don't do anything. So that's an informational prompt. Another type of prompt that I use often is one where I give the AI context of an image. So that could be, I've designed something in a different app. Maybe it's Figma. I take a screenshot and I can upload that screenshot to the chat or add it to the project in the instructions folder like we talked about before, and then give it context to that file. And I can say something like, hey, take a look at this file. How can we change this screen to match that? Another time is if, let's say, implement something, but it's not quite right. And we launch it in the simulator and we can see that something's off. What we can do is take a screenshot in the iOS simulator and we can upload that to the chat and we can say, hey, look at our project currently. This label is overlapping this other text. Can you fix it? So giving AI context and that visual feedback of what the issue is also very helpful for it to be able to fix it. And then the last type of prompt that I use is to ask AI about errors that are happening in the app. Perhaps it's a build error, like we talked about the red text at the bottom. You can ask it like, it's my project's not building, what's up with this error? Or perhaps there is actually a bug happening in the app saying like, when I'm performing these actions, this unexpected thing is happening. So what AI will often suggest is to add output to different parts of your app. So then it can see as you're performing those actions, it can just look in the terminal and it can see the output and it can see the instructions you're following. So as we go through the process of building apps with AI, these scenarios will come up and then we'll use these prompts to tackle them. But for now, let's try to build something. And for that, we need an app idea first. Okay, so I was going to cover app ideas in this part, but it's running a bit long, so we will do it in the next part. Let's do a quick recap. In this part, you've learned how to open up your Xcode project inside Cursor and how to configure it by adding a build config, instructions.md, and also Cursor rules so that AI can follow your guidelines. You've learned how to launch the iOS simulator and test your app. You've got a taste of prompting AI to make changes to your app. You've learned a few different types of AI prompts that will be useful for you when you're building your app. And you learned how to undo any changes and how to tell AI to help you fix errors. In the next part, we're going to talk about app ideas and how to split it up into step-by-step instructions for the instructions.md file. And then we are going to prompt AI to create it. If you're enjoying the series so far, please drop a comment below and let me know. In this part, I'm going to show you how to take an app idea and build it inside Cursor. Now, the best part is that you can use this process to build app after app after app. All right, let's dive right in. So first off, what are we building? It's a tip calculator. Now, I know that's not terribly exciting, but hear me out. There's actually a lot of little nuances to something like this. Let's put it this way. If I was teaching you how to code, I would not choose a tip calculator as a first app. But with AI, yeah, let's do it. And like I said before, you can use this process to build any app idea. So just keep that in mind. All right, moving on. Now, before we jump into the tip calculator build, I do want to mention one thing first. If you've been following along in this series, back when we were setting up Cursor, we're installing Cursor extensions, and we're also installing Homebrew formulas to set up our dev environment. Now, Chris Parker from our community brought up a really good point, and that is that there are malicious extensions out there, so you have to be careful what you install. Make sure it's from a trusted source. I would Google it, make sure that there's no security risks or previous incidents with the extension and things like that. So just to be safe, I was double checking what we installed for this process. and that is SweetPad. It's widely used by iOS developers to streamline their workflow, and there's no recorded security incidents with it. Swift is maintained by the Swiftland community with no known security issues. Those were the two Cursor extensions that we installed. We also installed a whole bunch of homebrew formulas. So this one, Xcode build server, no known security issues, being part of the core tap further reduces risk. iOS deploy, it's widely reviewed, no known security incidents. XC Beautify, no reported security issues, high usage and inclusion. And Swift format, no known vulnerabilities, widely adopted. So to sum it up, everything that we talked about using in this series has the green flag. It's all good, but still pays to be aware. Don't install extensions from shady sources and things like that. Double check first. All right, now back to the tip calculator build. So the first step is we have to create this requirements document, put it inside instructions.md. This way, when we prompt Cursor, we can refer to the build steps in here and have Cursor build it step by step. So this requirements document was generated by this prompt, which I'll leave in the description below. You're an experienced iOS app developer who explains things in grade 5 level English without technical jargon. I wrote it specifically this way because otherwise it would generate a document for a professional developer, and there's going to be a lot of things technical. It's hard to understand, especially if you don't know how to code. So I tried to create this prompt where you can read it in as much plain English as possible. So at a high level, there's the app overview, there's the goals of the app. This is user stories, which is different scenarios that the user can do in the app. There's specific features, and then what screens there are. This section will be useful later when we try to use AI for design. This describes how the data is stored, any extra details you might have, and then the actual steps to build it. And then down here is where you put the app idea. Now, I will say the more detailed you can be about the app idea, the more fleshed out the idea is, the more this document will reflect what's in your head. Because if you just use a single sentence, like for example here, I have a tip calculator that lets the user enter a bill amount, choose a tip percentage, see the total amount, and split it between multiple people. I mean, that's great, but I could probably describe, do I want a settings screen? Do I want like light and dark theme? Do I want this and that? If you don't provide enough, AI will actually start to fill out different features for you. The good thing is that you can then edit it for things that you don't want, because we're not just going to copy and paste this into Cursor. All right, so what we're going to do is open your AI of choice. So you can use Claude. I'm just going to use ChatGPT right here, and it's going to go ahead and generate it. So we can talk about it as it's being generated. There are some goals. You can definitely edit this because this is just generating off of what it thinks. These are the different things that the user will be able to do. Again, you can edit it. Different features. It's great that it shows some scenarios, like if the bill is empty, then show $0, or if the user picks 0 people, set it to 1. These sort of edge cases. If it's not specified, then the AI will either not handle the edge case or it will handle it incorrectly. Main screens. So it is just saying one screen. I've generated this requirements document for tip calculator a couple of times now, and each time it's a little different. There was one requirements document where it had a settings screen. It looks like this time it's only having a main screen. So that's what I'm saying. The more you can describe your app idea, the better result you'll get. Okay, so some extra details. No internet should be needed. All data is stored on the device. Okay, works on all iPhone screen sizes. Okay, build steps. So this is what is important, because we are going to be asking Cursor, hey, let's build step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10. But we're not just going to speed run it from 1 to 10. We are going to go through 3 different steps for each of these build steps. Number 1 is telling Cursor to build it. Number 2 is testing it out to make sure it did its job correctly. And if it did, number 3 would be to either using source control to save your work, essentially, save the state, or if you're not using source control, to just create a copy of the folder, which I'll show you how to do. This way, if at any point your project completely breaks, you have a good working copy and you're not going to lose that much work, probably just the previous step. All right, so let's go ahead and copy and paste this. So actually, it didn't obey my instructions completely because my prompt said to format this document in Markdown. And Markdown, you'll see, it lets you copy and paste it. Show it to me in Markdown. All right. So this is more like code as text. It's just the document formatting. So you can hit copy and you can directly paste it. Whereas here, if you try to copy this, it actually doesn't copy the bullets. I don't know if you've tried this before, but it's quite annoying because then you're going to have to format it as a list afterwards. But make sure it's fully generated before you hit copy. All right, so it's done generating it in Markdown. I'm going to hit copy. And then here, I'm going to delete all of this and then paste in my new requirements doc. So now we're ready to move on to the next step. So now we're going to open up the AI panel and the terminal panel or console panel down here. And we're going to give context to the instructions.md file. Make sure you save it first and then hit that. And then we're literally going to ask it to build step B-001. Say that. And it's going to do its thing. But this is actually just creating a new SwiftUI project. And we've already got that. So let's hit stop. Perfect example. Let's go back because we already have a project. And I wasn't actually reading the requirements document. So we should actually just start with step 002. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's just change that. I don't want it to create a new project. It didn't change anything, did it? So main screen, it's going to analyze all of the project structures. Let's see. This is relatively, actually, we will be able to see something. So the nice thing is that there's reference numbers to everything. If you search S-001, you're going to be able to see, oh, that's US, that's user stories. That's not the thing. Screens here. That's the only screen we have. That's the main screen. So it's going to start building this. It's probably going to add the title, the text box, the buttons, the stepper, all of that stuff. We're going to hit keep, and then we are going to launch this and take a look. So when you hit this play button, it's going to launch the simulator. But if it's the first time you've ever tapped it, you're going to see a little menu drop down asking you what iOS simulator you want to use, and you want to choose whatever one makes sense. So I usually just choose the latest iPhone Pro. I'm going to launch this guy, and then we're going to see what that screen looks like. And this is another thing where every time you do this, you get a little bit of a different result as well, because this just describes what is on the screen. It doesn't describe how to position anything. Like this looks different from the last time I did it, and it looks kind of broken and bad, right? But we'll solve that later with our design. So right now, build step 002 is all about just adding the elements on the screen. I doubt any of this is actually functional unless it just like zoomed ahead and tried to do stuff. Okay, so that looks good. Remember the 3 steps we're going through is prompt it to build it. Number 2, test it, which we've done in the simulator here. And once we get to the parts where you actually have logic, testing will become a little more involved because you want to just make sure that the app functions correctly. Right now, it's just built the UI. Does it look relatively like everything's there? Yes. Okay, so in my eyes, that's a pass. Number 3 is save it. So I will create a separate video on using source control and GitHub, even if you're non-technical. So we'll go through that together. But the easiest way for you to do it in a non-technical way is just to create a copy of your folder. So this is test cursor. This is my project here on the desktop. I am going to just hit Command D, make a copy of it, and label it the last step that I successfully tested this build for. So that was step 2. And then we're going to keep doing the same thing. I'm going to tell it now to build B-003. Going to do his thing, and then I'm going to go through the testing and then saving step, just these 3 steps across all 10. So I'm going to zoom ahead because it's pretty self-explanatory, and I will show you what we get. Now, actually, before we do that, I will mention one thing, and that is that when you test it, let's say it's built step B003, right? And you're testing it by launching it in the simulator. If you get a build error right here, some red text, it just fails to launch, there's some mistake, and in this case it's build succeeded, but sometimes you get red text and it won't launch. So then what you want to do is add context to the launch terminal right here, and you're going to go down here to terminals. You're going to choose launch, and then you're going to just say, hey, I'm getting an error, or just error. Hit enter, and it's going to try to fix it, guide you through it. And that's when you're going to get back on track. Now, if it can fix it, like you've done this a few times and it just can't get it to build successfully and launch, then that's probably when you want to consider rolling back to one of your good copies. And the way you do that would be, this is your working copy, right? You would just delete this, and then you would just take your last good working copy and remove this part and use that as your new folder. That's the non-tech source control. All right, but you really should learn how to use GitHub because it is going to be really helpful for you, even if you don't know how to code. So where are we here? We're testing step B003. So this is add the bill amount input and link it to the data. So actually it already had that. So I'm just going to go through these steps like I said before, and I will join you back up in the last step. Okay, we're back. So I just ran through all 10 steps, but I haven't launched it after it did step 10. Before we do that together, I do want to mention a couple of things. Cursor and AI in general, they're changing so fast that I didn't point out this context usage because this thing is new, but it's really, really helpful. So I mentioned before that all models have like a context window, just a certain amount of things that they can keep in mind while processing your request. You can think of this as a bucket. And you know how every time you make a prompt, you are telling it to reference files, you're telling it to reference different screenshots. And then also as it's processing your request, it's also searching for different things in your project. So it's always adding information to give itself context so that it can perform your request. Well, once this gets to 100%, something's got to give. So it's going to start, I don't know how it determines what to lose context on. When it reaches 100%, you may want to consider switching to a new chat, or once you're not getting the results that you want. The other thing I want to mention, actually I have mentioned this in the previous parts, are these two toggles right here between agent modes. So agent is usually when you're like doing stuff, and ask is usually when you're asking stuff or trying to get information. In terms of which model you want to use, different models are suited for different tasks. Some are suited more for complex tasks. Some are suited more for vague tasks. So maybe do some Googling because these models are changing so fast that I think anything I say now will be outdated in an instant. Also, they cost different amounts of Cursor credits. So that's something to keep in mind as well. You can leave it as on auto. If things are working well, it's going to choose the best model for the job, which is probably what I would recommend if this is all new to you. Okay, so now let's run the project and see what we get for step 10. Actually, I should have been explaining all of that stuff while I was launching the simulator, but I think it'll be pretty fast. So let's see. Let's take a look. Okay, here we go. So we have the bill mount. So let me put my cursor in here, put in 100. I can't dismiss the keyboard though, so that's the problem. And let's choose 10%. Number of people would be 2 people. All right, pretty simple. 120, 60 per person. If there's 3, it's 40 per person. Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to add a custom tip percentage, right? That isn't something that we put into the features or not something that we thought about, but yeah, works as expected, except the keyboard. So let's prompt Cursor to fix that. So I might say that I want to be able to tap on the view side of the text field in order to hide the keyboard. And actually, testing it on the simulator is different slightly from an actual device. So maybe if I ran this on a real device, that this behavior would be inherent because the keyboard does behave a little differently in the simulator. Like you saw when I first put my cursor into this text field, this didn't pop up because you have a keyboard connected, right? So you can type in different things. I had to manually hit this shortcut key for the keyboard, which is Command K. Here it is, Command K, this one. And that showed this. So that might be why I can't dismiss it, but let me see. So let's run this. Oh, let's see. Yeah, okay, so it's gonna do its thing. The other thing I wanted to show you actually, which wasn't completely relevant for this prompt, is that sometimes if you see a visual glitch. So do you remember back when we did step 002, that the percentage, like I think some of them, the percentage symbol was below the number. So in cases like that, it's better to give cursor a visual context of what you're referring to. So you can hit Command S to take a screenshot like that. It's going to show up here and it's going to slide away and appear on your desktop. Or you can just hit this button to take this screenshot as well. So there it goes. And then you hit this little image icon and you can choose that screenshot and send it to Cursor as part of your prompt. And then you can say, hey, look at the screenshot. The percentage symbol is not to the right of the number. Can you just make sure it all looks formatted correctly? Something like that, right? It'll take up context when you're uploading new files like that, but I think you're going to get better results, in my experience at least. Another helpful tip for uploading screenshots like that is when we get to the design and we want to show Cursor what result we want to achieve. Another way is you can add those screenshots, the design files, into instructions, which is what I do. But for little bugs that I want to give Cursor context to, like visual glitches, I usually don't save the screenshot into the project because it's just sort of like a temporary thing, whereas the designs are more permanent. Okay, so let's see if fix this problem. The keyboard in iOS has always been a little finicky. I've seen some apps put a little button on the software keyboard that you can just tap to dismiss it, because tapping outside the screen to dismiss the keyboard, sometimes it's a hit or miss. So that's another option that we can explore. Okay, it's come up, yeah. So if I go like that, and all right, works, perfect. So don't forget to save state, either by copying your folder. As you can see, I didn't do it. So just based off of my experience in doing this stuff and understanding that this app isn't too complicated, I just sort of skip that. But if you're starting out, you're doing this, you don't want to lose your work, make sure you save along the way. And then when my GitHub video comes out, I'll reference it here and you can go watch that too. And you can learn how to use source control and do it like a developer would. And it's actually better than doing this multi-folder thing because it's the proper way to do things. So now you've just learned about creating a requirements document so that Cursor can easily follow step by step how to build your app and what you want it to do. And number two, the 3-step process to allow Cursor to build your app step by step. And that is build, test, and save, or BTS for short. Let's go with that. Now the problem after you do all of that and you have your app built is that it's kind of plain looking. So we can fix that with AI as well. In the next part, I'm going to show you how to use AI to create a design and then how to implement that inside of Cursor. In this part, I'm going to show you how to use AI to create a nice looking design and how to implement it inside Cursor for your app. All right, let's dive in. So if you've seen my other videos, you'll know I'm quite a fan of this tool called UX Pilot, and you can do designs with AI. Problem is, if you just prompt it like a regular prompt, it's going to create pretty blue and white, businessy type designs that all are going to look like that style. It's kind of like a default style that's not too edgy, not got too much personality, but it's not offensive either. If you want to infuse some uniqueness to your design, we're going to combine Mobbin, which has a lot of screenshots of different apps, with UX Pilot, and I'll show you how to get better results. So I'll leave links in the description for these tools, but you can use them both for free with a free account. You know, obviously limitations, all of that, but I'm using a free account for Mobbin. As you can see, you can scroll a bunch of screens. With a paid account, you can see all the flows, but we don't need that. We just need a general aesthetic and vibe that we want. So I'm looking for something that might be good for our tip calculator. It doesn't have to be the same type of app. What you're looking for are colors, design styles that you like. So I'm going to use crypto.com. So let's just take a screenshot. Let's see, what screen would be good? How about this screen right here? What you can do is, I don't want to copy, I want to download it. So you can go download. You can download the screen here, but probably a faster way to do it would be just to copy it. Because I think if you download it, it does put a watermark on it. So if you just hold down Command, Shift, and 4, it's like a Mac command that you can do this. The thing is, I don't really want to get the borders. I'm just going to try to not get the borders, the gray borders, because sometimes it's going to confuse the AI, and you'll see what I mean. Now I have a screenshot on my desktop of this design. Now we're going to go back to AI, and we're going to attach that screenshot like so. And then I'm going to use this prompt. I call it describe this design. I'll link to it below. But it's actually just asking it to describe the look and feel of the design and put it into a prompt that I can use. And I'm going to put that prompt into UX Pilot. Okay, so now we can try to do it. So this one I'm actually paying for because it gives you some extra features, but everything I'm showing you now, you don't have to pay for. Let's see. So I want to do a tip calculator, and we're going to give it context. And because we have the requirements doc, we can go here and we can grab some of this context, right? Okay, yeah, I actually grabbed all the steps from 1 all the way to 5, including the screen. All right, so we're going to create that. And then I'm going to choose Hi-Fi Designs. I'm going to choose Mobile App, and this is where we are going to put the prompt for our screen. I usually like to append this part. That's only talking about the vibe and aesthetic. So we'll see what we get. It's kind of like rolling the dice when you're using AI, so we'll see. So the screen that I want to do this with is right here. Design the main screen, design, right, what's on it, and then use this. Here. Use this. Now there is an image, upload an image as a reference. So but this is a paid feature. You have to be on a paid plan to use this. And plus, actually, I've used it before, and it's not as good of a result as the way I'm doing it here, oddly enough. Let's choose deep design and use more credits. Okay, so this is like double the credits to hopefully get a better design. So we'll see what it comes up with. All right, so here's what we got. The aesthetic, it really does look like this, right? But it actually copied it too much. What is this? What is this progress bar? Oh, this is a dark mode versus light mode. I think the sky motif, that's like a starry night, doesn't really make sense in this regard. But I do like there's a soft glow to things. Maybe I picked the wrong design for a tip calculator because like there is a starry night motif here. I don't see any glow on the buttons though. It added this glow here, which is kind of cool, I guess. I don't like these like little arrows and graphs. That's more of like a finance thing. So here's the thing you can do with this though. That's pretty cool if you can get that to work. Split pay. It even gave my app a name. Premium edition. I didn't say that we had that. Okay, so here's what you can do. You can edit specific things. If you clicked on edit, you actually go to global edit, and then you can tell it what to do. So I would say remove the starry background, remove the progress bar under the heading, remove the line chart in the lower right corner of the bill amount. Oh, is this a little button to take a photo of the receipt instead of entering the amount? That is really cool. That is an idea I haven't thought about. Or no, actually, it's just the title of the box. Yeah. Oh, but it'd be so cool, right? If you had a button, instead of having to enter an amount, just take a photo. I also usually write, don't change anything else. You hit go, and it's going to create a new version of it. You can always go back to the first version by using these back and forward arrows. Okay, so it's actually done a pretty good job. removed the starry background, removed the progress bar below tip calculator. It removed the line chart from the bill amount. It basically did exactly what I asked it to do, and it kept everything the same. Now, if it starts to get finicky, because I know prompting AI sometimes is just such a dice roll that you're not getting the results you want, you can save to Figma, and you can manually then click things and hide them and delete them and then export the screenshot, like the final design. This is a paid feature. There's lots of features which I think are worth the $12 a month or something, whatever it is. And again, I'll leave my link below. It's a referral link at no extra cost to you. I'll get a little kickback. So thank you for that if you end up using that. But besides the point, even if you use it for free, I think it's a great tool. What we haven't done is if you have a multi-screen app, you can then add a screen to the right or to the left, and you can create like a flow, like a whole start to finish design. I won't show you the save to Figma part here in this video because this is not about this tool, but what we've done here is good enough to bring in the cursor. So let me just minimize this a little bit so I can see the full thing. And you can, I think exporting may be a paid feature. I don't remember, but if you can't export, I think in the beginning, what I did was just literally take a screenshot. Do you remember how I did it with Mobbin? Command-Shift-4, you just select that, and you just go ahead and take that screenshot. Try not to take the little outlines behind it, because any little detail, sometimes AI will pick up on that and try to integrate those little outlines into your design. That's not what you want. So now what we can do is go back to cursor, and we can add that design from my desktop. Is this the one? Yes. Oh, I have this white outline. I don't want that. So that. I think that's a little more accurate. Give it a couple of seconds there. And then I'll move it to my instructions folder. And you usually have to just, there we go. Sometimes if you try to reference the screenshot or that image you added and it's not finding it in here, sometimes you just have to click it, let it load first. It's almost like it doesn't know about it until it does. And what I should have done is rename it. So I'm going to try to rename it here. I'm just going to call it main screen design, because now it's just easier to search for. Main screen design. There it is. Now you can try to one-shot this. Chances are it's not going to get there 100%. But then you can prompt it and tweak it and slowly work your way there. So I'm just going to throw a Hail Mary here. And I'm going to say, change the, actually we'll also give it context to the main screen. I think it's content view, because this is where all the code is. This is where it also pays to know a little bit of Swift UI, because then you can click into your files and you can know where things are. But your default project only has 2 files anyways. This is the app entry point. You know that because of the at main. Doesn't contain any like view code or whatever. Content, you can see that here. It has an instance of content view. And that's this screen. And you see all this code here. Right? And so I'm going to give it context to the content view. You probably don't have to, since there's so little files in this project. Change the main screen to match the main screen design.png. All right, let's see. You know what I could have said is ignore any features in the screenshot that we don't have, because now AI might actually go and try to implement new features based off of what it sees inside here. So this is where I think it really pays to have worked with this stuff. Like the more you do this, even though it's not specifically coding, it's a skill to know how to work with AI and how to prompt it in a way where you get what you are looking for and not anything more and not anything less. AI has a tendency to just run off the rails. Anyways, I will resume the video when it's finished doing its thing and we'll see where it gets to. All right, so it's just done its thing. Let's run this together and find out how close it looks to our design. I'm not expecting a lot, so we'll see. Okay, so here we go. Actually, you know what? This might be dark mode. I wonder if, so I was taught a shortcut key to go into dark mode, but unfortunately it activates something else on my computer. So I am gonna have to do it this way, dark mode or developer. There it is. No, it's not. Okay, I guess we could, wait, it is. Sweet. So this did a lot more than I thought it would. It definitely looks a lot better than it did before, and I'm pretty happy with this, to be honest. It doesn't look exactly alike, but we can go from here. Structurally, I can see the resemblance. Like color-wise, maybe not. Font-wise, maybe not as well. So it would have helped if we knew what fonts they were and stuff like that. I think we'll stop it here. I think you've got a good basis to go on. Part of the fun of this is experimentation and just playing around with it. I'm probably going to do a deeper video into using UX Pilot. We'll go into Figma, and actually there's a developer mode in Figma too, where you can get the Swift UI code for the different elements, and then you can start to just move things over manually instead. That way you have more control and you can get things looking more like the actual design rather than just you trying to use AI to one-shot it like this. What I do want to move on to is showing you how to take the information and the skills that you've gained in all of these parts and how to apply it to your own app idea. So let's talk about app ideas. Now it's your turn, but you have to find good app ideas. And I want to take a couple of minutes to share with you what I've learned about this. If you find the right search phrases that people are using to look for apps on the App Store, and there isn't a lot of competition for these search phrases, then you can align your app with these search phrases so that it shows up where people are already looking. We call these search phrases keywords. And the beauty of this approach is that, number one, it's data-driven. And that means that we're not guessing at what apps people need. And number two, it doesn't require a lot of manual marketing effort. We can still get downloads as long as the keyword is not too competitive. And if you do this right, you're going to get visibility and downloads from the App Store for free. We call this organic traffic, meaning it just comes naturally. It's not paid traffic, and it's not traffic where you are manually telling people to go and download your app. I've done this with a handful of apps, as you can see here, and it's actually working. I haven't marketed any of these apps with the exception of Daily Parent, and it's getting downloads naturally. Now, it's not a waterfall of free downloads, but each app has been improving in its rankings, and together they combine to do some pretty decent volume. And with the AI app building process that you just learned, creating a collection of these apps is totally doable. Now, how do you get started doing this? Well, you use a tool like Astro to do research and find these keyword opportunities. And then you just build the app to satisfy the searcher. I did a whole video on how to use Astro and to do keyword research for the App Store, and you can watch it right over here. I'll also link the tool in the video below. Congratulations on finishing how to build an app with AI. Now you have everything you need. You know how to find app ideas, you know how to take that idea and create a requirements doc and how to build it inside Cursor using the BTS method. And number three, you know how to create a unique app design and how to implement it. Now, after that, it's going to be about app marketing and getting users. Now, the tricky part of this is that it's always changing. Marketing strategies come and go, and it can be pretty daunting as a solo creator. But let me tell you, you don't have to go at it alone. I'm launching a brand new community of app builders just like you, with step-by-step courses, daily support from me. Yes, I'll be there answering questions, live events, boot camps, and members who have already launched their own apps. So if you want to stay motivated and actually finish your app, if you want to discuss the latest marketing strategies and what's working these days, or if you just want to be around people who are just as passionate as you are about building apps, then this is the place to be. It'll be ready in September, so tap on this link to join the waitlist, and I'll send you a heads up when it's ready. Either way, I hope this video series was helpful for you. I hope you learned something new. And if you end up building something using this workflow and these skills that I shared with you, please let me know by commenting below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.